Okay, what we're going to do is just a similar exercise now with the Space Spider. Again, important things, make sure your cables aren't caught up. A thing we talked about was geometry and texture tracking. So when you've got an item like this, where the field of view for Spider may not see all of it as it's moving along, if you were to put this on a white background and there were no features, which there are very few on this shape, in the middle, you may find that you get a shortening of the shape that you're scanning. So therefore what you want to do is introduce some texture background. So here I've got a piece of paper with some squiggly felt tip lines on. Pencil lines work really well. It's just purely whatever you've got available. To be very honest with you, if you just laid this mouse mat because it's coloured texture, it would work very well. So what we'll do is we'll take our bone, we'll put it on here, and what you don't want to do is don't want to move it about whilst on here. Okay, it might be a little bit of blue tack or something that holds it in place. So what we need to do is you can say, okay, call up your scanner. Again, look on the screen, get it in the mid-range, and then what we're going to do is we're going to try to start right the way around the end this time, here, and I'm going to come along the bone fairly quickly. And what I want to do is I want to try to turn the scanner so that I get different angles of view of the shape, but I need to make sure that I capture some of the base underneath as I go along. So then I come round to the end. You know full well that if you get too close, or if you want to pause, click up. You can wait a moment, reposition yourself, and then when you've got yourself in a good position to carry on scanning, you can point back at something that you've already scanned. It's most important to go back to what you've scanned. So here I'm going to find the end near enough, click up, wait for a moment. The software will pick up where it left off, and now you have the ability to even scan where you can watch the screen, and you could move over to the other side, and you can move along the shape and go back down the other length of the bone here, all the way to the other end, quite happily, moving round to the end. Make sure you pull away so it stays green, and then if you stop and move away, you can press the button to stop. Now what we want to do is we want to reposition this somewhere else, so you could put it in another axis, whichever way is easy. I'm going to just turn it over here to show you. Then we can repeat the same process again. So we're going to do second scan, get the distance correct, click up to start scanning, nice green to feedback to start with, move it round to make sure that you get into each of the areas and the cavities that you want. So make sure that you can do this, and you can go down the other side first if you want to. Move along here, come down to the end, pause, wait a moment, move closer, put it back in a similar orientation where it was, click up. It will then pick up on the scan part you did, and then you can come back round here, moving away, move round the corner, move in the side. Come back along the front edge now, make sure we get plenty of the table in line with our texture. Don't get too close. Move down to the other end, back to where we were, and you can see I can get there. Now, what you can do is you can use the software to have a look and see where you've got and where you haven't got, and you can always come back in and scan some other pieces. So for example, just to show you the versatility, if I wanted to get on the inside of this part, I don't need the base in the way. I've got good geometry in front of me, so actually I can turn the scanner on. The important thing is the hand-eye coordination to the screen. You want to find the piece of bone. I can see the bone there, get it in line, click up to scan, and now I can turn the bone round and I can pick up that piece on the end if I want to and move around here, trying to look down the inside of the bone. If I've lost it, just move back, wait for it to pick up. Gone a bit too close, there we are. Move away. You can move round and look in the end there. So this is another way of trying to do things if you just want to pick up on another little piece. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put our scanner out the way. If we're not using it anymore, perhaps we'll unplug it, move it out the way, put it down somewhere safe, move back over to our computer to continue. So now we've finished scanning, we'll close the scan tab down. We can fit to window if you want to, so you can see what's going on. You've got your a crossbones scenario here, doesn't really matter what it is, but we can see then if we go into our workspace, if it's not shown, just click on the sidebar, pops out. So on our first attempt to go round the job, we started scanning, paused, carried on scanning. So therefore we've actually got two pieces and they're still in line with each other. When we went to move the part, we changed the part completely differently, so therefore we started scanning our second part, and again we paused part of the way round and then carried on the next piece. Our last little piece is this piece down here, just the end piece. We can utilise that, put that on the model as we progress. So the important thing now is, what I'd like to say is that the texture background with each of these scans, okay, is quite important to keep the length of the bone in the right orientation. So therefore you don't necessarily need to delete it straight away. So what I would propose is that you come into Tools, you're going to perform global registration. However, this time you want to do each piece separately. So you press Apply. Now what happens is they're not aligned with each other, but the frames within each piece of scan will be registered globally. Okay, we've gone through there. We've got very good error. 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 would still be quite acceptable. Now we've done this, there's a couple of things that you might not know is tucked under these three dots, you can have different things shown in the list. So for example, if I tend to have on this one called the locks, if you wanted to stop any frames from moving around, what we can do is once you perform the global registration, you can actually click here. This puts a lock on it, but if we want to stop it or prevent it from moving, you can anchor it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to anchor the first two, so we can do that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the editor. I can still perform erase because the lock doesn't stop you erasing anything. Choose the pieces you want to work with, so I don't want to work with this one just yet. This is base here, and instead of using the cutoff plane, I'm going to try to use the base selection. Base selection tries to find all the shape around the bottom of your part. You just need to click on it, wait a moment, and what we can see is if I click on the screen, it's selected the bottom area in red, press erase. Very quick and easy to do. So we can turn off that group, turn on this group, turn it so I can see, select a piece of the base. You don't have to paint much of it, just a piece. It selects it. You can also jump into your other tools, so if there's a piece you wanted to keep or wanted not to keep, or whatever method you need to do, you can choose. If you then press erase, that piece is retained. Of course, if I don't want it, then I can choose this to keep out of the way. Okie doke. So on our last piece, it's just that piece on its own. So what we need to do is try to line these all up. I think it'd be quite a good test if actually we went through here and said what we'd like to do is go into our alignment tools and let's see what auto align can do. Unfortunately, I've got some bits missing, okay, and sometimes it hasn't done everything I wanted it to do. But don't be alarmed, because actually what happens is that whilst we're in these display modes, we don't display all the data. So under the extras, you could say show all frames. And now what you can see is actually there is more data on this side than expected. But there's nothing to stop you. now keeping these pieces and adding a couple more scans, one from each side, to get the detail that you want. The software, if we run it from now, will fill and interpolate these points itself. However, it might not be exactly what you wanted. Once you've aligned it all together though, our first two were aligned perfectly and we've locked them, you can go back to the tools and say global registration, and you want to do collective. So you press apply. It warns you that you've got some of the scans locked. Okay. Okay, you may have briefly just saw it popped up and said loading data. What's happening is all of this is being retained in a temporary file. So the best thing to do now is actually come along here and go save project as, and then we could say bone or whatever you wanted to call it. Press save. Okay, now we've saved all that. Even if you leave the software and we exit out and opened again, the job will still be there. We can even open other projects, so you can say open a recent project. So we could go up a level here and we can say date modified to see where we are. Move up to the top. There's the head one we did earlier. Press open, click head, open, and you've got the heads here, exactly what we did before, and you've got them still in color mode. The other thing that's quite nice is in history, you can move back through and move it around, or you can come back through the history. So you've got this here. If this project, which we finished earlier, was totally finished, we've exported the model, all we need to do is to save on disk space. You can remove the history. So rather than going up and down through it, you just go to the edit menu and say clear history. It will allow you, you can say keep the last, I don't know, 3 places if you want to, and clear. It'll keep the last 3, which still will move backwards and forwards through if you wanted to. But actually I like to say the job's finished, so I'm going to clear the history. I don't want any actions, so change this back to 0. Press clear. Come out of here. Now I'm going to go back to our other project, open recent, the bone. You'll notice that I didn't have to save the project. So everything I just did in the last one with the head has been saved. So here we go. We've got our shape. We've got fairly good registration. What we're going to do is go through the same idea again. We're going to run Sharp Fusion and press apply. I'm going to make it watertight just to make it easier. Press apply. It tells me you might have altered something. Well, we did have the other ones locked, so you've got that choice of running global registration on everything, but here I'm just going to run the Fusion. Now we've fused it together. You can see it filled in the sides quite happily. There was data there. If there isn't data, what you find is that it looks a little bit smooth on the edges. So you do need to inspect the model, move around. It might be that you've missed some bits. I think I've missed some here because it's just quite smooth where it's tried to interpolate it itself. We've got some inside of the end down there. And in fact, what I can see, which is an error on my part, is that I didn't actually get the whole bone lined up. So I need to correct that piece of alignment in our original scans. So you'd need to go back to the scans, and here I can see that this piece is a little bit out of line. So to correct that, there's a couple of ways we can do this. We should actually, instead of relying on the alignment that actually did it automatically, maybe we need to just check. So the blue one here, I can double click it, and I can see that that piece there is in the scan, and this piece here. So what I'm going to do is undo these by double clicking them, or say mark as unregistered. You can right click and you can ungroup them as well. So you can see here, I can see that in this piece of scan here, okay, it looks okay. This piece here is a piece that's out of line with that other piece, okay. So therefore what you need to do is you need to try to realign these pieces. Sometimes it could be due to hand movement. and misalignment. So a quick way to try to fix this is I just suggest to align, and the software will try to bring that a lot closer. Okay, but I can see there's still a piece out of a line there. So what I should do is I should explore each of the scans. So we should go back into our scans. We can turn them all off under Fusion here. We can start looking at the scans and see what we've got. So in this one we have this piece. Here we have another piece, but we can see it's not totally in line, I don't think. So we just need to actually run the alignment on there. It's because we've locked them. So you can just unlock them here. These two pieces here, I can actually perform either a global registration, is a quick way of doing it, or you can go to the alignment tool. So if I say global registration now, and you can also set the search distance. I'm going to make it say 10 millimeters. Press apply. We can see that's pulled that together a lot better now. Okay, and then you can add your other pieces of scan. We know they're in line with each other. So here, this one's fairly close. That one's fairly close. So the best thing now is to run collectively each of them together with our global registration. So you will get situations sometimes when you didn't notice that you got a piece out of line. A useful thing when you're trying to do this is to change from texture, scan color. Sometimes you can see what you're doing. You can see there's a little piece there I need to perhaps realign. But another good thing is to use the maximum error. It will display orange and red areas if it thinks it's got pieces out of a line. So that's a useful thing to do. Now if we look at the model, we seem to have got a lot better alignment around there. And what we would do is I'd just rerun the Fusion again. So you can say Sharp Fusion, press apply. Okay, the process has just come to the end, and now we can actually see we've got that corrected. There's some small little objects, a small object filter, depending again what you want from the model and the size of the model that you've got. You can actually see the size of the polygons here. I'm going to do a fast mesh simplification. I'd like to keep more detail, so maybe I'll make 1,000,000 triangles out of this. So we can click on here. It's a quick process to do fast simplification. Made the model a lot smaller. Depending again what you want to do, we could reapply the color if we needed to, but in this situation probably all you need to do is perhaps orientate it. So you could say, right, I need to go to my editor, make a rough positioning. I'm going to choose these 2 points on the bone. I'm not a bone expert, but just to try to show you the idea, I'm going to go to my view to home, and what I want to do is hold down the shift key and drag the mouse a bit so that I can put it whichever way I want it to be. I can move it round so that I've got it in an orientation that I'd like it to be. Press apply, and then normal policy is that once you've got the model, you would go over and choose to say export the mesh here, and then you can choose the format that you want to export it into another program. Again, as I pointed out, we don't need to keep this job open. It's saved, and you go to make a new job. The job's still there as you did it before, and we can go back to those recent files. For example, the head's still exactly there. It is still in color, okay, and obviously we want to go back to the bone, and we can say fit it in the window, turn the view around a little bit, maybe look at it from the side, change to the right side. Okay, so that's that little exercise done, and again, hope you found this a bit useful as well.